We are your hosts. I'm Viviane Chauvet, Arcturian emissary, and my dear friend Jeff Demers, emissary for the Pontes and many intergalactic delegations. The Infinite Star Connections is a place where we give a voice to our star brothers and sisters. But today we have a wonderful, amazing guest who has so graciously accepted to come back and share even more of his incredible knowledge, firsthand life experiences, and a multitude of books we're going to learn. You're here for a treat today. Allow me to properly introduce our guests. We're here with the amazing Cezanne, who have said yes to our invitation. He is very talented. He has a multiple college degrees. Cezanne has directed a worldwide television show called the UFO AZ. He's been employed as a bounty hunter, military contractor, and everything in between. And we're going to dive into this, including working at seas as the founder and the recipient of many awards for his charity work, the quest of ECSS and ending child slavery and more. Cezanne is known for being a tour of the force and standing up for those who have no voice. He's been speaking publicly with very large audience around the world and has been part of many humanitarian efforts and even beyond. I want to dive right away with you. Thank you for being here. Welcome back.
Oh, my pleasure.
Absolutely. And I think you have many books, but you have one who is brand new, which just came out from what I understand.
Yeah, this is I wrote 5 books so far in 12 months, and it's the new one, the Plagarian Diaries Ohm, uh, which has a lot of significance to it. But they're diaries, right? So you kind of got to read them in order.
Yes, you have to write it in order, and we want to make sure everybody will have access to find them all. I just want to acknowledge everyone who's joining us live. Paul, thank you for being here. Kevin, Sam, Jenny, welcome for being here. Ruth, I know you were the first one to wait for us. Thank you for being here. Marilena from South Africa. Um, Fadia, also from California, and we have people from all over the world. It is wonderful. Thank you for being here and supporting our incredible podcast that is growing every time. So let's dive on this beautiful book number 5 you just show us.
Uh-huh.
What can you share about this book?
Okay, you want to go in reverse, huh?
So we can go back and we're going to be
Yeah,
multidimensional
yeah.
today.
Well, the name Ohm in there is significant because there was a time where we had met this couple, and they to me they reminded me of Vulcans, right? So I kind of call them the Vulcans. I kind of name everybody because I'm kind of allergic to language, and so it's very difficult and it's very acceptable to them. So, anyways, we met this couple, and we did some different things, but they wanted to take us to this, or they have this place, a planet in their system that is pretty much all water, and the land that's there is not usable. And Sam Jess had been there to do some sort of speech or talk, and so the family decided, that's the group of people that I'm hanging out with. They wanted to go down there, and we wanted to go, or they wanted to go swimming. And I'm always into swimming, so we got there and then met up with Sam Jess, and uh, me and Sam Jess went off for a little while, but then we came back. And in order to do this, it was like a great big sphere out in the middle of nowhere, or in the middle of the ocean, which is in mostly the entire planet. And it was like a nature place or a nature park or something like that, kind of a cultural sort of thing. And so there's a lot of activity that goes on there besides what they have. And inside, it was all cut out of coral. So we're standing everywhere that we could stand on platforms above water was coral. And Sam Jess took me to the water, and I could see fish in there, and she says, it's not like Earth. You don't have to worry about anybody eating you or anything. And so anyway, they took us over to where these other two Vulcan type people, which just a quick description is the only reason I call them Vulcans is they sort of had a similarity in their appearance, to that on Star Trek. But they have 5 digits in thumb, so they have 6 fingers, I guess. But you don't notice it. Also, their chin narrows down somewhat significantly more than ours. Although the 2 that we met, they had actually spent 6 years on Earth, but that's a whole nother story. And they could pass, in other words, as us. And anyway, so we get to this point, and they said, well, to go swim, and I'm thinking, snorkel or something like that. And they said, no, it looks a little different than that. And what we did was they had, spread legs out and arms out, and I could see on the ground there was like a tube, looked like a little lawnmower gas tank, but it was a little curved, and they had like a mouthpiece and stuff. And so anyway, they started spraying one of them while the other one's talking to me. The other one started spraying something around my feet and was working her way up. And when they got closer to like the back and everything, they set in the tube and they sprayed over that. And then, of course, the thing on my head, which you could hardly notice. And then she tells me that to put the mouthpiece in my mouth, and that once it's in there, I wouldn't even notice it. And then there was like 2 little, like the swimmer goggles, real tiny. And they just kept spraying me until they sprayed me complete. So it was almost as though I had like this bluish skin that I was wearing, and I could breathe. And it was weird because she said I could talk and everything else. And I had about an hour in the water until the filters would start to weaken, and then I would have to return, and then I would hear a small tone, and also the suit would start to get tighter. And so anyway, I'm all suited up, so to speak, in this new skin, and we get in the water, me and Sam Jess, and we start swimming and everything, and it was amazing. It was very similar to like here on Earth, and so were the life that was there. The fish looked pretty much the same. There was like a crab looking creature and stuff, so it wasn't that dissimilar, right? And Sam just took off and she was going too fast. I couldn't keep up, so I kind of diverted over, and I saw these 2 people swim like into a rock, and so I went in that direction, and what it was like a cave, and I went in there, and so I was having a good time, right? And then Sam just come back and grabbed me, and we met up with the family, and every time I would try to speak to her, it was awkward because it was like, I would hear her talk, but I wouldn't respond to her because I didn't think I could respond to her until I remembered what they had told me, that I could speak in this, and it would be just like I was out, without the suit and stuff. And so anyways, we hang out, and these dolphins started to get attention towards us, the family, now that we're in this like circles just swimming, and they started swimming around us and then between us and things. And I never really cared a whole lot for dolphins, but through some experiences I've been having, I've kind of started to like them. But they looked very similar to ours, and they sounded very similar to ours. And maybe were a little bit longer and thinner. But anyway, they started bumping up against me, and they're, like Sam Jess tells me that they want to take us for a ride or a tour, right? So to grab their fin. And so I did. And they took us through so many different places and everything, and it was really neat. And then the family, their suits were ready to retire, so to speak, so they had to go back. And the 2 that was with me and Sam Jess, the 2 dolphins, kept us going, and we kept going farther and farther and farther back, and seeing all this beautiful life and these colors and everything. And the water almost glowed this aqua blue. And so eventually they got to this point where there was this great big hole that went down, and it took us down in there, and the sides kept narrowing down until the very bottom it was just a small area, and they left us. And we kind of looked at each other like, did our Uber run out or something, and but they left us. And so we're sitting there at the bottom thinking, well, what now and stuff. And just before we decided to move out, this larger dolphin comes in, and it comes down close to us, and then it kind of backs up where it's almost like standing up, and then it turns towards us again and makes this noise, and like bellows out a noise. And in front of us you could see like this this great big shape, and it was like a symbol from the sound. And so, it's like, Sam Jess, what's going on? She says, shut up. And and she's listening, and it does it again, right? And then so Sam Jess utters the same noise back to it. And these symbols are appearing in front of us in the water. And then the dolphin, once it looked like it was pretty excited that Sam Jess was, making the noise back. And so it made a series of noises. Each of them had a different symbol. And to me, it was like, what's that, cynetics or something, where they vibrate a metal and it creates these. Yeah. And so it was similar to that. And plus I saw it like a Buddhist looking symbol. And what's funny is, after researching, I spent time in the temples, and they don't, the elders don't even know where these symbols, the Buddhist symbols, come from. And it was actually from the Sinetics, right, from ancient times. And so anyway, Sam Jess repeats it back with just a couple of alterations, and each time she does it, no one makes it one of those symbols. So anyway, long story short, we get back, and we're on the ship, and we go to our science guy, which is Hans, and we're explaining what happened to him, or to us, to him. And so we was looking for kind of an explanation. And then he says that, he goes, it's actually kind of simple and normal. And on the ship, he has a way of just manipulating his hands in a way to create these symbols, right? And so then he can pick them up and move them. And so he's lining them up along the wall for us to look at. And he says, like, the first one was to say hi. And then each of the other ones was, glad to meet you, or something like that. And then the difference between the dolphins and Sam Jess's was she just inserted our names in it. And so we're kind of blown away by this. And then the first thought I had, which I asked him about, because he had mentioned that these are sacred symbols that are throughout the universe, and that certain species, most of them, will put a sign basically on their ship with certain symbols that represent their peoples. So, I got to thinking, well, Roswell, and they had that strip and such. But in other words, so it's kind of like a universal language throughout the universe, where people will know who that is, or whatever it may be. I thought that was kind of fun story, right?
Well, it's amazing. And where was that again? All of these
But when we met these, or it was in what I call the Vulcan people, the ones that look like them, it was in their system, their solar system. It was a planet that's almost all water, not the one that they live on, but it is one of theirs in the system.
So these people put a symbol on their craft?
Not just them, but many different races will put what he called it was like a signature to identify what peoples they were.
Gotcha.
And do you know what system is this watery based planet located at?
Well, here I go, Homer in space, but like the Pleiades is like, there, right? And then so you would go to the Pleiades and go another 82 light years, and you're in the Pleiadian system, and you go another 580 some light years further is where these people I call the Vulcans reside.
Okay, now when you were underwater, did it feel pressure like ours too?
No, it felt just like being in air. And like I said, it was, it's similar to the suits that I noticed that they wear. When I first met Sam Jess and I picked her up, it felt like I was touching her skin. And I think I explained the last time how the suits work, how they're almost like a living being.
Yeah, they're like a sentient or something. And
this reminded me of that. And when they took it off, they just sprayed, and it just kind of just came off and dissipated, and there was nothing left.
Well, what was the color of that? Remember, it was blue, right?
Yeah, it was a kind of an aqua blue. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
And this kind of allows you to function, breathe, and be underneath water.
You don't even know it's on. And, it was awkward, like I said, to me in the beginning, because when Sam Jess would talk to me, I was like, shaking my head instead of saying yes until it's like, oh, okay, Homer, just talk, and I talked, and then it was just like I was like above water. There was no difference. Breathing, I couldn't feel the thing in my mouth. I couldn't feel the thing on the back of my head, but it was incredible. It was like I call myself Aquaman now.
Yes, Aquaman for sure. And I envy you because I've always wanted to be underwater. I've had over many, many years, several vivid dreams when I see myself underneath the water in the ocean and just being there interacting with oceanic life and beings. And I know naturally how to breathe and how to be. So when you said that, it brought me back to that memory. And I'm sure that many people who will be listening to this it will evoke this deep memory, even from Lemuria and Atlantis. We talk about when you were on this planet with those beautiful civilization, having this blue suit on, so to speak, in the water with them, the dolphin type, but it looks a bit different from those we know here on Earth. In your experience, in your knowledge, do you think that those dolphins that you saw on this other planet, that's nothing to do with Earth, everybody, it's another planet here. Do you think they're among the same intergalactic cetacean group of the whales and the dolphins?
I really believe so, because I saw, it was kind of funny, by accident I come across, I think it was in the Amazon or somewhere where I don't remember exactly where it was, but I saw these like pink dolphins with a really long nose, and I've seen them. And so I thought that was kind of interesting. So it just seems they're a symbol throughout the universe.
Interesting. And remind us again so we can be there with you in the journey. How did they bring you to their planet and their system?
Well, we were in this ship. I call it a cruise ship because it's massive. It's really massive, and it takes like the blink of an eye. It takes longer for them to acquire where we're going than it does to get there. I mean, it's just like snap of a finger.
Did you happen to write down what that symbol looked like?
Which one?
Anyone?
Oh, well, the one I emanated, which was Om. And it was kind of funny. I was so impressed with what I had seen, and seeing these different type symbols, which are real common in a way, but they're unique in each one. But so I decided to try to do it. I had an app, and you can make the voice or noise, and then it mimics what the sonetic would be, image would be. And so I was trying to do Om because I had seen Om before, where it was a circle, a circle, a circle, right? And when I did it, I made this, and that's the actual one that I created by doing Om. And if you look at it, there's 12 portals, which I thought was kind of interesting. But I haven't gone into detail, but I noticed that there are differences in the different tones that different species make.
Right.
And so it makes it unique,
Did the craft make a noise when it was traveling?
No.
Just as silent as could be, right?
As boring can be.
Interesting.
And you don't feel anything either. Now in the pods, I would feel something a little bit, but it was more, I think, visually that I was feeling from the visualization. Like when you're moving and you don't have a point of reference, you don't know that you're moving. You don't know that you're turning. It just goes and does. And it's interesting to me because I realized that, like when Sam Jess, she hates my Jeep, and I think it's that she's she gets motion sickness, and because on the ships there is really no motion whatsoever.
Right. You don't feel the inertia like you do here.
Yeah, no, I did with when me and her went to see the two Vulcans and at their place, at their home, and we used their ship, and they're only 2,000 years more advanced than we are, and he had like an antique spaceship, and it had controls, and it also moved. You could kind of feel it move a little bit, which was kind of fun. I mean, it's more fun when it moves. I mean, when it doesn't move, it's just like, I don't know what to say. It's just no fun.
And let's remind everyone who is or tuning in right now, just join us to listen to you or discovering what you do. Who are this group of people or intergalactic people that you've been interacting with? Who are they?
They call themselves the Plagiarian. They said that's the best way to describe them. Uh, they're similar to what you hear about Palladians, and there's everybody's the people that write about this stuff. They all have their own experience, and I don't I'm not going into somebody else's. I'm going strictly into what I experience, and they have larger eyes, quite a bit larger eyes. Their ears are like narrower but taller. But other than that, their appearance is virtually just like ours, except for they're perfect. And they can manipulate a lot of different things about their physical looks too, and their hair. Their hair, I looked at Sam Jess's hair one time up close because it just looked like ours until I got real close to it, and you could see the light through it. It was almost like fishing line, like that monofilament line. And they have the ability to change through thought the color of their hair and things. But I didn't know that in the beginning. Only until we went to like the colonies did I see people that looked different, And I also talked about hugging and stuff like that, how I introduced the crew, which was kind of funny too, because I learned that once we got out of that, those type of people, like the way they describe it, they don't need a military or anything, but if there was to be a military, they have this uniform sort of look that's kind of expected. And that's why they always have the blonde hair, and they look the way they do. Where on the colony, they look more like, other people, like they just, except for they're tall. Most of them are pretty tall.
Okay, now this is in the Pleiades, right?
Well, the colonies are all over.
Okay.
But that's what it would be like. Beyond the Pleiades.
Beyond the Pleiades. Oh, yeah. Okay.
80 light years, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, because most people think, well, the Pleiadians, all look the same, and there's different races within the Pleiades. You're like calling us Milky Wayers. But,
yeah, I think I talked about that last time, but it's kind of like if everybody on Earth, kind of copulated together and we became one race. That's kind of what you see with them. Like the one we call Mother, I think she's more, she's got more black features in her face, but it's very subtle. I met another one that I could have said was Asian because of the very subtle differences, but for the most part, they're white. As far as the Plagiarians go, they're white, and they have these different features so you can identify each one. So
But you've been communicating with this group for a long time. This is where you came up with, and I see the banner I'm showing the banner on the screen right now. You wrote the diaries on series, like what, 5 already diaries in the form of books?
Wrote 5 books in 12 months.
5 books in 12 months. So the one that you showed us with the cover, that's the latest one, number 5, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they all start with the Plagiarian diaries as the name, and then there's the different ones, 1 through 5 so far. Yeah. So and you can get them all on Amazon.
On Amazon, okay. And I'm also showing the website right now, everyone. If you're interested to discover in order, the format of diaries, there's a chronology of experiences in time. We encourage you to read them in the order from 1 to 5. There's a website right now showing on the screen, PlagiarianDiaries.com. They're also on Amazon. Definitely diving into that. It's going to be absolutely an incredible journey. And if I understand correctly, you've been communicating with them for a number of years already.
No, just since April, the year before.
It's just only been a year.
1 year, yeah.
Oh, it feels.
I know there's so much that's happened, and that's why I write as diary, right? And you can see the progression through the books when I discover I was wrong about this or something, because at first when I knew Sam Jess, I was thinking of the Sam Jess that most people know about. I thought that was her grandmother when it's actually her mother, little things like that. But I write as things happen and the way they happened.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they oversee what I expose, but they very rarely have ever had me not put something in. But I just hit the highlights. And there's so many things that they've told me and showed me and I've experienced that is a reality. And some of those things weren't a reality when I wrote them, and they are a reality now, you know, simple things, but and power and how they use that, how they can form metal in space where they can't hear and what happens to it and so on. I mean, just so many things. But the core base about everything is evolution of our brains in a sense. And that is that it's about love. You know, you have all these files that are empty in our head. We use our whole brain and everything. And, you know, it's just like if you would reflect as memories, right? Memories, you can store those right up until your death, right? Well, it's the same. There's open spaces up there for love, unconditional love, those moments in your life. And when you start to fill all those little spaces in there, the things that you used to think of as magic, like somebody levitating and things like that, well, those become a reality because those natural. You know, so it's so simple, but the key to everything that they do seems to be through love, and love comes from the natural laws, right? The way things flow. Like when we birth a kid, we basically program them in their system. They allow the kid and feed whatever it is that they're interested in. And it kind of eliminates those things that happen to us where we get frustrated and stuff and we end up being a bad person or doing wrong things. Well, they don't have an incentive to that because that's not the direction that they go. But it's all in my book. I put it down, you know, pretty much as it is.
Do you think this is a conscious experience, or is it a physical experience?
Everything is a conscious experience. And it was kind of funny. There was an experience where me and Sam Jess left, and she was like, well, what we call travel, right, is when we want to have an experience together. And so we'll sit across from each other usually and go through this process, and we just take off, right? And she said, oh yeah, so do you want to travel? And I go, yeah. She goes, well, this time we might have to die. And I was like, well, okay, whatever, right? And so, and you know, when you leave the body, we live in this coil, right, or this spiral type thing. And when we left, that's what we see usually immediately. But when it got to a certain point, it turned to a flat line, which I thought was really representative. It's where we died. But what we did was we went to source, and we were able to do things that we couldn't without, right? And it was kind of interesting how I was shown consciousness, energy, and all this, and how it related spiritually. And so the best way I came up with it, where like, you know how everybody has a past life or past lives, right? And consciousness is kind of like, have you ever seen those little exercise mats that or kids things where they get like a puzzle piece, they go together and you lay them out on the floor and you know, you can build them. Well, each of those pieces are a fragment, okay, a fragment of consciousness. And then you have consciousness, you know, that's this big mat up in the void. And consciousness, I see him as like this great big white-haired guy, and he's sitting on a lazy boy, which is sitting on top of that mat, right, or the consciousness. And then what we believe is coming down here to live a life isn't exactly that. What it is a projection, because we never ever leave source. So we don't come here and we don't go back. And so his consciousness is sitting there on his lazy boy, and he's watching all these television sets. Each one of these television sets has a TV series on it, right? And each one of those is us. And so as he's watching, we're a projection, and all of our lives are going on in the same time, because time really doesn't exist. It's an illusion. And so as a life is an illusion. And so when our TV series is over, the projection's off, but we're still here in consciousness at source.
I totally get that, but you know, people got to know that illusion doesn't mean fake. It's
right.
just different. not physical.
Yes,
It
we're
is
always an
real.
energy source. Yeah, and time doesn't exist. It's
Right.
just it's a process of getting from point A to point B in an instant, right? It's the same thing,
Just
and so
moving
is our life.
through space.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Then you're both touching a very deep core, and I would like to explore a little bit more of this before we move on to learn more from you, because I know you have some points and a list you want to explore, and I would
uh,
love to hear all of it. So I like the analogy of we never left source. We're there right now. The lazy boy with all the TVs, and like Jeff mentioned, illusion doesn't mean fake. So some people may say, but then what does it matter whether I do good action or bad action? What does it matter if I go living a life or being of service to the light or just a life of self-serving? What does it matter then in the end, this experience, according to you?
the negative is empty. It's stagnation, and so because it's just like kind of the brain, like I explained. It's kind of my hypothesis of what I've learned from them, but that we've met our evolution, right, in the sense of physicality, because I see it's reflected upon the Plagerians how similar they are to us, and that the thing that's different is that they have learned natural law coming from filling the brain, this empty part, with love or gratitude. And I talked about sensing before, and sensing is like the key to the universe. It's where you set and you just start to see something or remember something that was of unconditional love, a memory that you have, no matter what it may be, another person or an animal or whatever. But you repeat that moment over and over again until it becomes real. And once that becomes real, you've activated all that love that's emanating from within. So love is full. And then that's what creates our limitless abilities to do the things that we want to do. Where if you're looking at negative and the things that are do wrong by people, then you're reversing thing. You're kind of eating away at that part of the fragment which you have. So it'll starve, like I say, but so you're damaging the consciousness or the whole. So you don't want to go there. It's kind of funny because religions talk about the same thing, but just not in this particular way.
Right.
They refer to it as a human thing or a condition, where it's actually a spiritual condition. Did that answer the question?
Beautifully, thank you. And Darina is asking, who says, well then, does it affect also on the physical? Because there's a lot of thing in the body, the physicality that affects people, pain, symptoms, things happening. Is that all interconnected then?
Well, of course, and that's what I think is really cool about years and years ago, which I've heard it repeated over and over again, about how we have the power to heal our body. And I truly believe that.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't do that through negative things, but negative things will also make a person sick when they start repeating the negativity, and they're drawing that to them, because you're at every moment of your life, you are calling out what you want, what you expect to achieve within this moment or whatever it may be. And if you're always sad and always depressed, I mean, you're going to attract that, because that's what you're asking for. If you're looking for the good in things, and the forgiveness of things, then you're attracting positive. So I mean, it seems that simple to me.
Question real quick. Are the Plagerians, do they show compassion?
Yeah. It's kind of like nonstop. Um, it's so beautiful to be like, when I go to the ship, I've never been a hugger or anything. It's like, I've been a contractor. I've been in the Shaolin and the fighting and everything. And so, for me to hug somebody was very a difficult thing. And then I kind of introduced it to my lab people, and what's happened is that they got so addicted to the shaking a hand, right? That was a big deal. And then I turned them into the huggers. And you go in, and the first thing that comes to my head when I go on the ship is, oh, here we go. I got to go hug everybody. And until that first one, right? When you hug, it takes forever, but as soon as you touch them and hold on to them, you feel this euphoria. and you don't want it to end. And it usually takes about 15 minutes for it start to dissipate a little bit. And then you move to the next one. Well, there's 6 people on the ship, and I'm spending 15 to 20 minutes every time I go onto the ship to say hi, right? But I like it when I'm there in it. But when I go there, it's like, oh, here we go.
Right,
I know what I'm going to be doing for the next hour.
That's interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of ETs that really don't have compassion. So when you find ones that do, well, that is pretty rare.
Well, we met this, call them the Greys, and I think I may have talked about that in the first time, where they've been around for far, far longer than anybody, and they were actually the ones who brought the Bulgarians into, this new age of theirs. And I got to meet with them because there's 2 of them that kind of think that like Sam Jess is their little girl. They watch out for her. And when we met with them, they explained to me that it's very difficult for them to communicate with people like on Earth and stuff who have the emotion, and because they have emotion, but we wouldn't see it, we wouldn't understand their emotion. And to speak to them was kind of awkward and kind of slow, but it was nice because I could tell there was a feeling, of love, because they were there. They came to see Sam Jess, and they wanted to also meet me. And so we shared, but like I say, the communication wasn't real well. But I understood it. I could feel it. Whereas like the people I call like the bugs, like the people that I meet, there's several different races or species that I've met, and they're all similar to us in the sense of being humanoid, arms, legs, and 2 eyes and such. But similar, but each of them are different. Some of them quite different, but for the most part, humanoid. The bug type people that I'm talking about, they don't really connect with, and they're not part of that sort of community that the Plagarians and the other races come together on, because it's like that, they're like the gray people that I met, but they were even further distant, because it's so difficult to communicate because of the processes that each of us do, them versus us. But the thing is that they know natural law too. And it's kind of like a universal law. Mm-hmm. Once you discover this, there's no other place to go, in a sense. So they would obey. If you say there was rules out in the universe, they obey. They just don't frequent each other because of the vast differences. It'd be like us talking to a bug on the ground or something. I mean, what can you gain from that, right? So much. You can observe, but you can't talk.
Was most of that communication telepathic, or were there words involved too?
There's noise. I haven't witnessed really the telepathic thing at all, except for with, this is me again. It's my experience. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I do know that each person that I've met out there had audible sounds, and for the most part, they can learn our language in a very 15 minutes or so, and be able to communicate with me, and they don't mind, and it's easy. But as far as the experience, mine is physical. And I think we talked about that before, but I think it's extremely important that people realize, that projection I was talking about earlier from consciousness, where we have this life, you could call it a soul. And our soul makes a contract, before we come here for specific things. Some of those may be the lower level things like physicality. And so that's me. I'm meeting these people on the lowest level, which is physical. But the thing is that a lot of people chose to be more advanced and move through the mind and through feeling. And so they may not have the physical experience, but they need to recognize that the experiences that they're believing they're having in meditation or sleep or even consciousness, that it's real. They are having a connection with them. Once they acknowledge to themselves that what they saw was not their imagination, or what they felt was not their imagination, but it was as real as the experience that I'm having, except for it's even on a higher level. Mm-hmm. So
beautifully said. I mean, You're taking me on so many journey all at once. It is just incredible. Um, did I think you mentioned earlier that the Plejarian, the one you're communicating with, they're about what 2,000 years in advance ahead of Earth
Uh,
human beings. Is that
but
correct?
Bulgarians are 5,000 from what I know, and the Balkan people were like 2,000.
Okay. So what's the difference between the Vulcan people and the Plejarian?
Not a lot, except for the advancement and what they want, such as when me and Sam Jess went there and they showed us their colony, which is a really good subject, but um, they're not so interested in just jumping from one you know uh, knowledge to a whole another one. They're growing into it through experience, but they have access to the things that the Plejarians do, and they imitate them, so they're independent. And that's what I see with most of the civilizations out there. They share the knowledge and they choose what they want of that knowledge, and so their advancement kind of follows the same path, but it has its own reflection. Yeah.
Okay, so you got me a little bit kind of confused here in terms of I really believe that the one you call the Vulcan were the Plejarian. So are they coming to two different planets, star system, or they
Yeah. Yeah, the Plejarian planet's beyond the Plejarian planet or solar system, so they're even farther away. But they're in the neighborhood because I think it's just not. It's so when you talk about neighborhood, you're talking about very vast amounts of distance, what we would see, right? But to
right?
them, it's a quick jump.
Okay. Do you think do you think that the Plejarian, they're your star family group, or you might have been part one of them in the past life? This is probably why they connect with you in this lifetime?
I know that the bond that I have with them is very close, so I wouldn't doubt that at all. I think that we've probably had hundreds of thousands or whatever you want to call lives, right? But the Bulgarians are, I know this. It's like when I was talking about the projections, and Sam Jess had her own show, and I had my own show. And at some point, recently, our paths of existence crossed and merged. And so her show went off the air, my show went off the air, and now we're on one show. And what we discovered is and I didn't know anything about this, I just knew what the instrument was that happened that put us with the details. And a friend of mine helped me understand what that meant, and that's a quantum entanglement. So it was our projections had this, we are the same person, but we're in two different forms. So, and we've had lots of experiences that uh, validate that sort of thing. So we think alike and everything else, and that's why we're like we are. But it was basically a quantum entanglement.
I
So,
understand. I
yeah.
understand. Jeff, my friend, unless you have questions for our wonderful guest today, then I'm going to encourage you to dive into maybe the points you want to share with us, um, and continue sharing about your experience, your knowledge. I know there were some aspect that you mentioned before we go live.
So you
There's
want me to?
something I think you mentioned to us that there's some things you want to share this time around.
Oh, so many things. There was one day I was on a ship and I was kind of bored, and everybody was kind of busy, and so I decided I wanted to go for a walk because I hadn't looked at the what I call the cruise ship before, and I know it's so massive and everything, and so I asked the captain, like how can I get to what we call the tourist girls, which is a group of ladies who've helped us out, in certain situations because they knew the lay of the land, so to speak. And they're really fun people. They're more entertainers than anything else. And so he told me how to get to them. And, I go down and I find the spot, and it was like forever because this place is, like I said, so massive. And I didn't know what to do about, that there's a door there, and I knew it was the right door, but how do I knock or what? And as I'm standing there, I touch the door and I hear the scream inside. And it was one of the three that was actually in the house or the room at the time. And by touching it, she was able to know who it was. and then opened the door. And so anyways, I explained to her real quick. I said, look, I wanted to go look around. I wanted to see what, everybody does here that when they have free time or whatever. And so she was happy to do that. And we go down to this place, and I call it like a strip mall or something, but it's not that, because they don't have any monetary system and they don't sell things or anything, but they do provide. And I had some really amazing experiences. The first one was like when you get food on up there is like they have your menu and it kind of fits your frequency. So the machine or whatever it is, there's a little place on the wall that you'll touch and it'll provide you get to choose from your menu or somebody else's menu food. And it usually comes out in these little gray balls. And they're kind of weird. You eat them and stuff, and it's just like the optics of it. It's just like, this is boring. Food's supposed to be exciting. And so I put it in my mouth and say I got a steak, right? Well, it feels like I'm eating a steak. The texture, everything, once they're in my mouth. And any of the foods that I select are like very far. So nutritious. And you just get this burst of energy and it lasts for quite a while. But anyway, there are people there who like to do things a different way. And so we went to this restaurant where there's like a chef, and he basically creates the food as you would picture it here on Earth, on your plate. And I got the lobster and steak, and so they make it. And then while he was making it, but basically what he does is art. He creates this on a plate and visual, right? And so when you eat it, it's the same, right? And I was asking the girl that was with me about her boots because they looked like they were leather, and she said yes, they are. And I said, so is this conscious food that I'm eating, or is this conscious leather that you wear and stuff? And she said no, because they can grow it. They make it on their own, and they can grow this, and they can also make many other things, but this is kind of like a trendy sort of thing where they actually grow it without the consciousness of the animal, so they don't have to kill an animal, just like the lobster, the same way. Plus the food is far more nutritious. So that was kind of fun to learn that. And then she took me, I said, so what do? You got I would be really interested in your video games or something. And she goes, yeah, we got something like that. And so she takes me into this room, which looked like a really large nightclub in a sense, but it wasn't. And we go in, and there's this like table, and she goes, if you want to choose an experience, she goes, what would you like? And I said, well, I'm not quite sure what that would mean to you guys. And she goes, well, I know knights. Do you know knights? Like knights, Templar knights or something like that. And I go, yeah, but that's not quite in my time period or anything, but I can think of something. And I thought of like a Japanese warrior or a samurai or something. And she found something that was like that after I explained it to her. And so what I was to do was, I said, first off, I said, am I going to be killing people in this, in my mind or what? And she goes, no, that wouldn't be allowed. She goes, because nobody would want that, because it's more of a negative experience, and it's not interesting. It's not fun, right? But in the sense of like this warrior, I would be killing people in a sense, but not like intent, right? So anyways, I was to lay down, and when she said once I started to lay down, I would start to float. And as I started to float, I would actually become that individual, that specific individual, but I would have no control over his actions or anything. I would be experiencing, and my thought process would be identical to what he was going through during like the fight or the situation. And so I went into it, and it was crazy good. It was incredible. I was actually that person. I had no remembrance of myself or anything. I was actually experiencing his fight through him and using his reflexes and everything. And I wasn't aware of myself. I was only aware of that character. And then once it was over, I remembered everything. And it was like mind blowing. But then I think a lot of people would be interested in this. She took me to another place and then Sam Jess come and met up with us. And it was like a dance floor from the 70s where they had the squares that lit up and everything, with the sounds. And come to find out, it was her partners, her other two friends, they were up on the stand and they were playing the music like a disc jockey would, but it was way, way different than that. And so anyway, the tourist girl asked me, she goes, so let's go down there and join. And I'm looking down there and I'm seeing all these professional dancers moving in rhythm. And it was just amazing, right? And I go, I'm just not quite a dancer. I said, if you want me to do forms or Kung Fu or Tai Chi, I said, I can handle that. But I said, I'm not going to do so good down there. And she said, don't worry about it. So we all run down there and we got out with a bunch of other people and they started to play these tones. And it was sort of like music when I was standing back and listening. You would hear these tones, meeting different frequencies, and they would create a feeling in you. Like if it was supposed to be, like for us, if it would be rock and roll, it'd be like that. If it was a love song, we'd feel, surrendering to it and things. So anyway, we're down there and we're in line and we're all holding hands, and they start these tones that started coming out that sounded like music. And all of a sudden I feel my arm moving and my feet moving, and I wasn't in control. And what these tones do is they stimulate different portions of your brain to create different muscular movements. And so I became a professional dancer all of a sudden, and it was very an emotional song, and it was just absolutely beautiful. And you could feel the love and everything that was coming from you and being expressed through the motions of your body that was being controlled by the tones that you were listening to. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That is off the chart, and I can imagine myself as in my Arcturian form going, let's dance together with the tones and the music. Oh
Uh-huh.
my goodness, that is phenomenal. And when you are on board of the Plejarian ship, they're really huge, as you mentioned. Do you see, beings from other intergalactic groups mixed there
Yeah,
too?
yes, primarily I've noticed that they are the Plejarians will be on, the ships or the places that we go. But there are other species occasionally that come and go, and there are some that stay there. But it's there's not like you would see in Star Trek or something where there's this galactic thing. But the humanoid peoples, all the species work together. They share, but they are like, it'd be like, if you're from Ohio and another person's from South Carolina, that sort of thing. They're not connecting every day like that, but they work with each other and you can visit to and from. So yeah, there's no real needed for an agreement. It's just your speciality and a purpose or vacation.
Do they all stay on the craft, or do they go to their planets?
The other species,
Everybody.
It's an interesting topic. I got to go to the Plejarian colony, which was amazing, and I learned a lot of things from it. But it was like this long tube, massive size tube, right? And it was open on the ends, but there's this like I don't know what you call it. It's not glass, but it's actually, I learned it was made of a metal, but it's transparent. It's as though it's not there. Like in the room that I have on the ship, I got this loft, and right above me, 3 feet above me, it looks like there's nothing there except for space. Sometimes it's all black, but then when we're in proximity to a system or something, then I'll have something to look at, but it almost feels as though you're outside. Anyway, this colony, this massive thing, has hundreds of thousands of people that live and work there. And they're far different in their appearance and their actions than the people that I met originally. So it was eye-opening to me, and I got to see how they made the foods and how they grew it and how that was all put together. And I actually, you got to eat one of the fruits that was just like mind-blowing. It's like taking a drug or something that makes you feel great. It's so nutritious and stuff. But it made me think a lot. And then the Vulcan people, which I kind of like their colony better, which was more of a sphere, and it was put into the system, right, that they lived in, the solar system. So it kind of mimicked, they could kind of arrange it to have a position where it would create the most benefit and be most livable. And the whole on theirs, the whole surface, it looked like a moon, right? Until I got down to it and we entered into it. They live within it. And or not necessarily live, but it's kind of like a resort. In other words, they have all this space and they create all this food that they supply other peoples. But inside of it, there's space where they had like this resort, which we had really a lot of fun in. Um, but yeah, there was a point when we went there and they had showed me how similar it was to the Blagarian colony and stuff. There was many things that we met, and I met this other species. Several different species come to these colonies. Like I said, it was more like a resort thing. There was this one moment where we had the opportunity, or I did. Sam just didn't want to do it, and me and the Vulcan female got on like those kites that you fly, that you get in, and they you jump off a cliff, right? They had something that was real similar to that, and this is all inside, but you wouldn't know it because they have that glass or whatever it is, that metal that you can see through, so it looked like you could see the sky. And the conditions inside made it look like it was mountainous, and you had the air and the wind and breeze. It was all created, but you wouldn't know that. Anyways, these things, I could pick this whole kite up with just my thumb. It was that light, and it was made out of a metal that was basically lighter than air. And so I got to experience that and write it down. We went to this other place where we went to this big opening, and there was this big circle in the center. And I saw people, I wasn't paying attention at first, but I saw people where they were like jumping and just taking off and floating up into the sky. And then there's like these platforms, large ones and small ones around. And they described to me, they go, if you want to go to one of the restaurants, that platform there is where we want to go. And so he's instructing me. He goes, you see these small ones, you want to go to the small ones and then jump from the small ones to the larger ones. And he goes, if you get, stuck, if you don't have enough inertia, somebody will come and get you, or you can just lean into the direction and it'll take you to one of the other ones to push off of. And of course, there's nothing connected them to the ground or anything. And so, I jumped to the first one, and then from the first one, I could see the target, the large platform. So I jumped towards the large platform, and of course I missed, but I got to the rail and had to pull my way down. But once I stepped onto the platform, everything was normal again. I wasn't floating or anything. And so that was kind of an interesting thing. We went through this other place where there was like another one of these big pools where people would go, but it was kept dark so that people could do what they wanted to do and, to enjoy or relax. And they took us down, and there was these three beings that were very short, probably about 3.5 feet high. They kind of looked like the Greys, but they had like no nose or mouth, but they had like ears, and they had 3 fingers. And so the Vulcan guy, he tells me, he goes, just put your hands out like I do. And I did. And then one of them stood up, and they looked like they were kids, and they looked like they were just enjoying being recognized, right? And so one of them stood up to me and put his hands against mine. And I just felt, again, this just beautiful feeling. And I could understand, what they were trying to communicate, which was, just love in a sense. And it was just amazing, the experience to have with them. But once we released, they ran around again like they were little kids. I don't know if that was their natural way, but the Vulcans were enjoying their presence too. But anyways, that was just a quick meeting. But their eyes were different too than a lot of them. They were large in the almond shape, but it looked like our eyes, and they blinked. So I thought that was pretty interesting. It wasn't the darkness or anything like that. They looked just like ours, but very large.
Typically, how long does one experience last?
What experience?
Like, say that you like this information in all these books, I would assume is an experience, right? You categorize all that stuff. Is it like a month? Is it a week? Is it is it
I'm my charity is the most important thing, and I think my purpose in life, and to rescue these kids. And so I focus that, and I take care of business here. Mm-hmm. And then when I'm free and I'm all caught up down here, I'll ask to come up, or else they'll come and want me to come up, and I'll go up there, and I may be gone 3 days or 4 days. until I come back here.
Yeah. Okay.
And,
Okay.
and that's kind of weird too. I started to notice like, I didn't, the time is different somehow. It was that I would go up there and be gone 8 hours, and come back here 8 hours. But the difference is that seems to be the same. The difference is that it may be a different day that I come back. And so it's not really predictable. So when I have something to do with like you guys, I make sure
You have
that
to make sure that you're here. Right?
yeah, I'm here that the day
I know,
before,
I have to make sure. I say, man, you gonna be around?
Yeah. I haven't tried to figure that out, but I know that the time that I'm there is the same. Like I'm here 8 hours or go there for 8 hours and come back here. 8 hours have expired. It just may not be the same day.
Right.
Well, that makes sense because, like you mentioned, first, time is an illusion. We know that 3D linear time construct is even more illusionary. And so when we talk about today, it's Sunday, May 7, it's not really Sunday, May 7. It's just a reference that we accept on a point of reference we call the calendar. So I
Yeah.
can appreciate when you're going to visiting onto another planet, another solar system with a civilization who are 5,000 years ahead of the actual Earth human beings at the time will be not perceived in the same depth. So I appreciate you telling them, hey, I gotta be on those amazing podcasts that
Yes.
day. So can I be on the planet? Because when you're gone physically too. You're no longer on the planet, correct?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's all physical. Well, depends on frequency and how that
True.
reacts. But yeah. Yeah. And like you say, I've reached a point, after we did that experience with going beyond, dying in a sense. I believe that went beyond words because when we did that, everything was instantaneous. There was no thought like I'm going to say this or that, or that didn't exist. Between me and Sam Jess, it was instantaneous, every single little thing. And then, so how do you describe? There's no time. Everything is an illusion, basically. What kind of words do you use? And it's just like at one point, this is kind of a comical thing. I've been trying to grow through this certain thing of how I feel, right? And I know that she's me and I'm her and all that sort of thing. And at one point through their process, like I showed them movies and stuff and I lead them, to learn certain things. Well, one day she kissed me and it was like, what was that? And so I had to process that, right? And started to think about it. And thinking doesn't work really. But in the death, I start to realize that I have to redefine everything because kissing isn't like what we assume it is here because it's just like they don't have sex anymore. Other than there's a certain ritual and stuff. But everything, like when you kiss, you're basically uploading since the last time you saw that person, the love that you've had between them. But it doesn't matter if it's male, female, male, male, or whatever. It's that experience of the person. Plus, it's sensual, right? And there's intimacy in a kiss, but it's not the same definition of what we have here.
Right.
And that makes it even more confusing because it's on such a different level and so much higher. So how do I have to rewrite the language in order to explain a lot of these things.
That's a really good point you're making, and we call it quantum way of communicating. The semantics change because the point of reference is no longer valid. So you have to redefine to see how you can communicate. And this is how I feel pretty much every day when I'm this constant intergalactic communication. Then I have to translate it in ways that bridge people here and their higher consciousness. And I'm constantly moving to that energy. So I'm with you explicitly. There was a question asked earlier from Darina. She was curious to see what was the Pleiadian perspective of the Earth human beings right now.
That we're in process, in a sense. It's pretty simple. It's not their responsibility. It's our responsibility. And how we keep repeating the same problems, right? But we've existed for a longer period of time. But as far as the next day and everything, that's all up to us. If we destroy ourselves, they'll allow that because we'll just start again. And like I say, because they understand we're just a projection and we're part of source, and it'll happen again and again, all within the same time. So it'd be like an instant. It all starts again and we advance again in an instant. The one thing about is their contact. That's about the only type of what I would call interference that is occurring, where there's certain kids with frequencies, right? And I keep begging them to be a contactee so they can teach me all these great, wonderful things, which I'm kind of learning, but they said, no, you can't because you're too old, you're too stuck in your ways, sort of thing. And, but they're, they still teach me different things. But anyways, they take these kids and they show them certain things of abilities that they have that they're not told about or understood, or it's not even understood here, what we're capable of as human beings. And so they're giving these gifts through education, and they select them through a frequency when they have a frequency that's more in tune basically with what they need to communicate to them. And for instance, that there was this little girl, there's several different videos that you can find out there, but this little girl that they had worked with, she's Chinese, and she's walking down this thing, and they got a video of it and all these dead plants, and as she passes by, they all come alive.
Come back to life.
Yeah, and there's many of these, right, instances. And these people that they show this to are not to be teachers. They're not to go out and show off or do anything else. They're just supposed to live. And through that ability, it's a positive thing that they're expressing, right? And through what they're experiencing. And that will attract people. A negative would repel. So these kids and stuff that they're talking or contacting with are to be, just that, be attractive, draw people in, want to be like them, want to learn that love, right? And so hopefully within 50 to 75 years, our consciousness will be around the world rather than just specific groups. Governments will no longer need or have a purpose, and it'll be the people's consciousness, and that'll prepare us for further contact.
Oh, absolutely.
Do you guys share imagery?
In what way?
And well, supposing you meet with Sam Jess again, and you have this image of, say, like a glade that you want to walk through with her, okay, without talking to her, does she pick up on that?
You mean if I would show her a picture?
Well, you don't have to show her a picture. Just it's in your mind. If you guys are connected, and she should be able to,
a mental image.
Yeah, does she get that?
Not necessarily like that, but in a way, because it's about feeling.
Okay.
And she'll get the sense that I feel when I'm there, and she can picture that. But as far as communicating, sending a picture to her, that doesn't work between us. Not to say that it doesn't other people. That's where we go back to like the soul contract of how your contact will be. Because if it's more of a mindful thing, I imagine that you could read and hear and see things being transmitted through the mind, but it doesn't work that way for me and my people.
Yeah, see, with the Pine Tea, we share images, and that's how we communicate, and it's really quick and fast.
I imagine.
So
yeah. Now, when I do the sensing, like if I wanted to talk to Mother, I'll sit there and when I start to think of her and I start to feel the love, right, and going through that process. Once I connect, like I use this go-to about when I saved this one child, and because it was total unconditional love to me. And when it becomes real, then I'll see an image that I hadn't created of like Mother. If I'm trying to get a hold of Mother, I'll see her, and I can see her make an expression, but I don't hear her. But that's because I'm Homer. Maybe with somebody with better abilities would have better action of that. So I think it's similar to what you're talking about, but no, it's not fluent in my language.
Gotcha. Okay, that's cool. Have you ever shared your experiences with the children that you saved too?
Some, not too many. Yeah, but there's a story about that too, which is kind of interesting. Sam Jess was with me one night when I was doing a rescue. The way I conduct a rescue when I'm not there is that I have a Viber app, and I get with the team, and the team, we put together a plan because we already know this place inside and out. We've been there 100 times or so. Well, in this case, we didn't know a lot about it, except for we know the kids were destined to die in a very short period of time. And so we had to go in, right? And so we had to do it, put it together on the fly. And my people are very good at logistics and being able to, do an operation. And so when we went there, I'm witnessing on the Viber, the commander showing me exactly the girls and the situation and what we do, right? Well, it was an emergency rescue because we knew the kids were in such bad shape. Well, because of my process of being a contractor and stuff for many years, one of the kids was already passed when we got there. And the commander shows that to me. And Sam Jess is sitting here just bawling her eyes out. And she sees me and she sees how I'm not affected in that sense, right? I see we got there, and one of them is dead. And we always have a process that we take care of the ones who are passed before we get there, and to make it right in her next life or whatever it may be. And so anyways, she saw that I didn't change emotionally, but inside, afterwards, she thought this was something that was not so good, right? And so, but it's the way I had to do things in order to deal with the things that I see and witness. So when I was on the ship, they sort of had like a little intervention, and they asked me, what did I want from this? What did I do in my mind? How can I allow those sort of things to happen? How can we? And I see it, and I tell them, I had rage, and I wanted to do things which I won't describe here, but I described to them that I would want to do to these monsters. But I says, I can't be that. I have to be this, right? Because this is the purpose, not to take life, but to save life. And so they thought that may be an issue that they could help me resolve. And that was to basically reboot me in a sense. And so where I was just as effective, I would go through the same process, but I would see it differently in my mind to prevent the damage, the negative, right? And maybe be able to create more of a positive connection. And when they're young, because of following natural law, in other words, when the child expresses things, it's of interest to them. And so they feed that interest, so they're never deplete of we call it workers for specific things, because they're following what's going to appear in the future already. We just don't know that. And so basically to reboot, they don't blend. I mean, they blend their hemispheres of their brain, or synchronize the hemispheres to create that, or to find the natural law without being inhibited to follow other things. Where us as humans, we're sort of programmed, taught and guided into directions that may or may not be of interest to us, but we're taught they are, or they aren't. And so we separate our hemispheres. So when you bring the two hemispheres together, you can see things that you cannot see when the mind is separated. You have a synchronization of hemispheres. So Monroe, I guess, tried to do this. And the way she started to train, Snake Lady was the one who started to train me into this, how to reboot myself and try to blend the hemispheres. And it resembled what Monroe used to do about trying to take people through audibles and things and to separate those sort of things. But it's actually a lot different. And so we started with toning, where we would lay and relax. We'd feel this like hot blob that would just move through our skull, down our body, out our feet, and then just keep going around and around, right? And what that does is it brings the body to a really deep relaxation. At the same time, she said she would start a tone and that I was to mimic her. And then when she changed the tone, to change mine. And to a point where we're doing this toning, we're having this feeling of this blob going through us over and over again. And then she said, there will be a point at which we're not making the noise anymore, that the noise will still be coming, but we're not making the tones. And that starts to where you start to blend the two hemispheres. But then we've taken it on to a far deeper level since we've managed that. Once I got to understand how to react to that, then she started to rebuild me it's a very long story, but
It sounds like
essentially
a realignment. basically.
In a way, yeah, where it's bringing my hemispheres to naturally work together.
Yeah.
So I can I'll see things that I wouldn't have seen before.
That's interesting because most ETs use a sound bath when they get when they leave Earth. They go and they get regenerated through a sound bath, which is interesting. So you might have experienced that.
I think that there's so much to do with tones and sounds.
Yeah.
That we have no clue. The
Yeah.
abilities of them.
That's an untapped market there. So yeah.
Yeah, untapped potential for sure that is continuing, that we're rediscovering. I feel like humanity is at the stage of rediscovering so a multitude of layers. And then thank you for sharing what you just said, Zezan, because that was part of my next question in terms of, because of your charity work and the level of involvement that you have to really rescue children and helping them. I was going to say, how do you reconcile that aspect of your life here on Earth with all of your off-planet journey, whether it's with the Vulcan, the Plejarian, and I want to see, curious to see how does it helping you going back to these reality in and out and still being so effective in what you do.
I think it's driving through different neighborhoods. I can't be attached. If I become attached to something, then I'm going to be part of that program. And I like to run program free. And I explained the last time about being what I call being naked, where when I'm on the ship, it has to be completely empty, open. They know every single thing about me. Anything that they ask me, I have to, and I went through that process with them, how I explained, the process of who I was and what I did and why I did those sort of things. And, each time, I feared that they were going to eat me or kick me out, right? Because I didn't fit that love that they had. And it was always in reverse. They just helped me and, cared for me and shared their emotion with me. And so there's no hiding anything. So when I'm on the ship, there's no stress. There's nothing. I mean, it's just pure love. And so then when I come back down here, I know that I have to be different. I know that you have to have a different face for each person that you face in order for them to be happy and for you to be happy, because we're not at that point where we can unconditionally love each other. We can try, and we can try to move in that direction. We can try to lead by example, but we'll be sacrificing ourselves in a lot of ways too, to the negative, because we have to be consumed by that. So it's going to be a while.
You're absolutely amazing, because I'm like, oh my god, absolutely amazing, because it's just phenomenal. I personally have a question in my heart and I want to ask, and you're always welcome to answer whatever it's comfortable. I love enlightenment in higher consciousness. This is where my question comes from. Do you ever discuss in any shape or form about your work, what you're doing here for the children on Earth, to the organization, your people, and all of this? And what do the Plejarian maybe saying about the dark light energy doing what they do here on the planet? Any thoughts about that?
Well, it's hard for them to conceive of what it is that we do, in the sense of like how, there's monsters out there that go this direction, and there's other people out here trying to create the love and light without taking the responsibility, and so on and so forth. And that was the purpose of behind this contact process that they're initiating, that where they'll change the consciousness, the flow. I think even better, I can tell you an experience that I had recently that kind of showed the abilities that we possess. And that is, Sam Jess had actually become what they call queen, right? And which is a whole nother story. But we went to this place that was far, far away, right? And there would be people there from what were really vast distances, and also some that were pretty close. And basically it was to see her and acknowledge her, and as what she had become, and, to agree with or to be with her. So in the process, Mother, which we all fear because she's so strong and she's got this she's the spiritual leader basically. She comes to me one day and she knows how me and Sam just go back and forth and we mess with each other and everything. And she said that it was very important that, I be there. And for me to be there, that she really, really wanted me to take a knee, and acknowledge her in this meeting that we're having with these people. And, it's kind of funny that she takes it serious, but it was like, because I always call her princess. I never call her queen, right? Just to mess with her. And because she's my friend, right? And so Mother kind of thinks things are a little bit serious. But I said, yeah, Mother, you have nothing to worry about. I have no problem doing that and acknowledge her, and so she was good. And she goes, because I'll be doing this also. And so, and there's a lot of tradition in this process, right? When somebody becomes like this. And so we're there and I'm looking at the people that were there, and there was a lot of different type of people, races. And so Mother does her thing. She speaks, and then Sam Jess is off to her right, and she turns to her, takes a knee, grabs Sam Jess's hand, brings it to her forehead, to acknowledge her and stuff. And so she does that, and then it's my turn. And I go up and I say some things, and then I do the thing, right? I go to my knee and I grab her hand and bring it to my forehead. But all of a sudden, Sam Jess breaks tradition because I go to stand and she places her hand on my shoulder to keep me down. And then she drops to her knees and does the same to me, takes my hand and, vice versa. And then she touches foreheads with me. When she does this, we were gone. We were out. And it's kind of a long story that I write about in the book, but we became energy beings and we were brought to these beings that were of pure energy. And I think it was more or less for your own being able to understand where you are. We were silhouettes of light, of like this golden light where you could see the outlines of our face in a sense and our body. And we suddenly merged and there was these three beings looking like us in front of us. And they were explaining acts of unconditional love and such. And that was what she did. She was showing her love for us and the acknowledgement that I had given her. And so they said that at that point, we had become light beings and we had merged into one being. And we weren't comfortable with that. And so we were like, do we have to be like this? Because we kind of prefer being apart and stuff. And so there was this long dialogue where we went back and forth on that. But essentially what they told us was, we could remain like that, which is what our essence is, right? An energy being. We are always an energy being. That's our fundamental thing. And all of us have that ability and to return to that. Anyways, we had done that because of these acts that we had been going through. And the way they explained to us was that we already do these things, but we're not conscious of it. Such as we witness something of, a random act of kindness or something absolutely beautiful that's taking place. And when we see this, we all, by feeling what we're seeing, we are contributing to that energy and expanding that energy outward. But when we are an energy being, we're a pure state where we recognize this, then we can add the power to it, making it spread out way further. And so just by being in witness, knowing that what you're feeling, and then knowing or consciously to allow that to grow and spread, that'll affect, thousands of people rather than those just around you. So I think that answered your question. I hope.
Beautifully.
Jeez, man, you better make sure that you didn't get married for the wrong reason. It sounds like next thing you know, it's like, well, shit, I'm married. What?
Jeff, you are funny. You and I make such a good
Hey, you know what?
balance.
When you get harmonized, man, it is totally different. I mean, it is different.
It is. It's beyond words.
It is. So yeah. Okay, real quick. I just want you can you just go over your books and briefly describe what each book is about? I know we got like about 6 minutes left.
Uh,
Good
well,
question.
in a sense, each one of them is a continuation of the last.
Mhm.
So you'd want to start at the first one if you like it. The very first one goes where I met her, and then how I started the communication, and then the second one gets a little bit more involved where I experienced the spirituality and being brought into more of their family. And then we kind of, by the third and the fourth one, we've solidified as a family, and that we have gotten to the point in the last one where we're going way beyond, other than just being brought into the family. Now I am part of the family, and so we're getting to know more and more. And I can explain that very easy. From the very beginning, they thought I was kind of a monster because I'm human, and they had no dealing with us, right? Well, recently, when I'm on the ship and I'm feeling gross a little bit, I get a shower, and their shower is like a dust thing that comes over and it just dissipates, right? And you don't feel anything. And I was kind of bummed about that, right? So I asked Sam Jess, could I get like this water shower? And so she was like, well, explain it to me. And I got the water shower, right? And so I love it, right? So here I am. I go back on the ship a while later, and I'm up in my loft and in my room, and I hear all this racket going on, and I look down, and here comes this buck naked lady out of my shower, and it was Snake Lady. And here it come to be that they were all getting addicted to the water shower. So now all of them had been using my shower since they put it in. And so they ended up, they got it. They loved the feeling of the water, just like I did. And so now they've put an actual one in their community room. So they have their own shower. But that's where I started was, I'm a monster and stuff. Next thing you know, they're stealing my shower.
Yeah, now you got to tell them how to use a soap and how to start. You know?
I love it. So each book, each diaries, really it's a progression how you
Yeah.
built a relationship and now becoming eventually hugging and part of the family, and then the next thing they know they miss you, so they want you back, and then you tell them, here's my agenda, this is my
Yeah.
calendar, I have to come back on Earth by our timeline calendar time, and this is where I need to be. I love it.
It's fun. It's a challenge, but it's fun. Yeah.
Yes, I would, Crystal, I'm with you watching right now, with Parker. Absolutely. I would take their shower. I think it would be much more effective. Take more time to soak, and then you have to blow dry your hair. This is too much time for me. I'm more practical.
Yeah.
I'm a nocturian, so I'm thinking more intergalactic. So I want their shower.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Um, a few words of wisdom, maybe to share with all of us from your amazing experience. What you're doing here on this earth right now, it's beyond words. Let's just put it this way. It is phenomenal. It's beyond words. It's beyond gratitude. It's just, I mean, I can feel the energy in the chat room, and I can feel it in my heart as well. From what you've experiencing and then with them and learning so much, what would be a few words of wisdom to to uplift people's spirit and says, look, this is what I'm learning. This is what I would like to share with you all.
It's the key to everything is love, but not just love the way that we can describe it or define it. And it's important not to define it, because it'll grow each time that you experience it. And the sensing thing, like I talked about, where you find that one moment in your life, or several different moments, but focus on one of them. Replay that memory in your mind over and over again. I mean, some in the beginning, it'll take a long time to really get it to the point where it actually becomes as though it's happening again and that you're there. When you reach that point of love, everything changes, and everything. I mean, and you're filling the entire brain with all those empty slots with love, so that when you start to react to something where before you'd be indecisive over, now you know what path to take, and you know how to do that immediately. So I think the key to everything is just pure love.
Pure love.
Mhm.
Pure love. And For me personally, what I'm retaining right now from our time together, which went in a blink of an eye, literally, is pure love. You are a being of light. Amplify the light. Be that source of light and love everywhere. The reset that we're capable of doing. And this is really, really phenomenal because that speaks volume, especially where we are. That and also detaching ourselves from being so emotionally already evolved and then our heartstring just got pulled in. You have to learn from that point of pure love instead of attachment. I'm learning that that's what I'm retaining. Yes,
Hmm.
absolutely. Jeff, you want to say a few words as we're wrapping up? We can't hear you, dear.
Sorry about that. The dog was barking in the back. I would just like to tell everybody that to get to that love state, just keep meditating to ground yourself so you can feel those vibrations. It's a totally different thing than just trying to get love. You know, you gotta meditate, and that is the key. We can all do that.
Exactly. And I'm sharing message of love. There's so many like this. Loving, loving, loving. Wow, wow, wow. What an incredible loving soul. Wow, wow, wow. And you deserve this. This is for you. And we want to acknowledge you. And we are people from everywhere: Bulgaria, Brazil, South Africa, Canada, United States. We have people from everywhere. We love you all. Thank you so much for being here again with us. And I know there will be more to share. We honor you and we send you our love. Cezanne, thank you for accepting to saying yes in all aspects of your expression. And everyone, please join us again. Our next wonderful podcast will be on Sunday, May 21st, 2023, 11 a.m. Pacific time, which is 2 o'clock Easter time. Saturday, May 21st. Not Saturday, my apologies. Sunday, May 21st. We talk about time, and I already go out of the 3D linear time, so I'm with you. Thank you so much. And stay in your light. Sending, yes, come back. People says, please come back.
Well, this guy's amazing. He's totally amazing. So yeah.
Above and beyond. Jeff, my friend, you are amazing as well. Thank you, everybody. Walk in your light. Pure love, everybody. We'll see you on the 21st of May. Namaste.